All right, Hawks, we're going to go through the Unit 2 test review today. Make sure you are studying because this does count as our CBA. All right, Larry has been counting his steps to lose weight. After taking a walk yesterday, he walked a total of 5 3/5 miles. Which fraction represents the distance that Larry walked yesterday? Okay, so remember 5 is our whole number. Okay, so they all have 5 as our whole number. And then we have 3/5. So just like it sounds, we're going to have 3/5 would be our fraction. But we don't have 3/5 in our answer choices. So that means we are going to have to simplify. So these are divisible. They end in 5 and 0. So that means they're both divisible by 5. So we are going to divide by 5 and divide by 5. And so we get 5, don't forget to carry over your whole number, and 7/20. So A is our answer. All right, moving over to number 2, which is this is what we did last week. Which list of numbers is in descending order? So remember, descending means we're decreasing. So we're starting at the greatest number and going down to our lowest number. So we're actually going from greatest to least. So I'm going to put a greatest to least to help us remember. Okay, so I have 2 7/10. So remember I said if you have a mix of these, we're going to change these to decimals. So 2 7/10 can stay. I have 45%. So remember how to change that to a decimal. My decimal's right here, and I go 2 places to the left. So that's 45/100. So I have 0 and 45/100. And then I'm going to have negative 25/100. Now remember how we changed 3/4 to a decimal? I'm going to have to do 3 divided by 4. I'm going to do that normally. I'm just going to carry my negative over and put it right here. Okay, or I could think of this like, do I have 3/4? So if I have 3/4, that is 75 cents. So this is going to be negative 75/100. And then I have 5 divided by 2. So always, let's finish dividing this out first to make sure I am correct. So 7 times 4 is 28. I subtract that. And then I get 2 as my remainder. So we're changing it to decimals, so we do not want a remainder. So that is 20. And 5 times 4 is 20. Now I have no remainder, so that checks out. Now I have 5 divided by 2. So I'm going to put 5 as my dividend and 2 on the outside, which is the same thing as saying that I have 2 halves. Or if I had $5 and I'm going to split it among 2 friends. So this is going to be 2. 2 times 2 is 4. My remainder is 10, but I'm changing to a decimal, so I do not want a remainder. So that is 5. 5 times 2 is 10, and that is 0. So I'm going to have 2 and 5/10. And I'm going to add a 0 as my placeholder. So I have the same amount of placeholders in the place value that I have. So now I'm ready to go list them greatest to least. Okay, so I do know if I'm going greatest to least, 2 7/10 is going to be the first number I start with. So I can go ahead and mark out B and D. Okay, so here we go. So 2 7/10 goes first. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that out. And then I'm going to the left. So this will be my next greatest number, which is 5 halves. So there's 2 1/2. So I'm going to have 5/2. So now if I'm already looking at my answer choices, I already have my answer, but we're going to go ahead and finish it out so I can be confident in it. Okay, so the next one is going to be 45/100 because I'm moving to the left. I'm moving from the right to the left of the number line. So we are going to have 45%, which is the same as 45/100. And then we are going to have negative 25/100, and then my last one is negative 3/4. So my answer is C. All right, good job, Hawks. Let's go to the next one. Number 3, Megan made 47.5% of her shots in last night's basketball game. Which of the following represents 47.5% as a fraction and a decimal? Okay, so I'm going to write over here. We have 47.5%. Okay, so remember, to make that a decimal, I need to move my decimal 2 places to the left, which is the same thing as dividing by 100. So 1, 2. So I'm going to have 0.475. Okay, and I only have one answer choice that has that, so my answer is D. Also, if I was putting it into a fraction, I would have 475, and this is in the thousandths place, so it would be over 1,000. And I would just simplify by dividing by 25, divide by 25, and I get 19 over 40. Okay. All right, moving on to number 4. Okay, number 4, we touched base on because I did have you write down in your notes what rational numbers are. So if you remember correctly, rational numbers are going to include decimals and fractions. And then remember, integers have no decimals, no fractions. Okay, but they do include whole positives, whole positive numbers, and whole negative numbers. So we need to remember that because they have no decimals, no fractions. So which set of numbers could be placed in the integer section? So we need to make sure as we're going through our answer choices that there are no fractions and no decimals that would go into the integer sections. So as I'm looking at A, oh, I see a decimal, so it won't be A. Now I'm looking at B. I see 39.5. That has a decimal, so it's not going to be B. If I look at D, I have a fraction, so it's definitely not going to be D. So the only answer choice is going to be C. Okay, so remember, it includes whole positive numbers and whole negative numbers. So C is your answer. All right, number 5. We're going from coldest to warmest. So this is actually going to be least to greatest. And let me read the word problem for you. Over the last 5 years, scientists have been collecting data over temperatures in Texas. On November 25th, it was 21 degrees. So we have 21 degrees. And then we have 11 degrees below 0. So if it's below 0, remember it's represented as a negative, so that'd be negative 11. In 2015, it was 10 degrees. I mean, that was in 2015, but 10 degrees in 2016. So that's a positive 10. 15 degrees in 2017. So 15 degrees. And negative 8 degrees in 2018. Put the years in order from coldest to warmest. Okay, so I'm going to go back and look. 21 degrees was 2014. Because we're using the years. Negative 11 was 2015. 10 degrees was 2016. 15 degrees was 2017. And negative 8 degrees was 2018. Okay, so if I'm going least to greatest, I'm going to help draw a number line to help me put these in order. Put my 0 here. So this means I'm going to start with the number that's going to start to the furthest left of the number line. So that is going to be negative 11. So that means 2015 would come first. Because over here I would have negative 11 somewhere. Now I'm moving to the right of the number line, so my numbers will get greater and greater. So then I would have negative 8. So that would be 2018. So I'm going to go ahead and mark these out because I'm done. And then I'm going to have 10. So that would be 2016. And then we would have 15. So that would be 2017. And then 21, which would be 2014. Okay, so make sure we're reading it carefully because it does ask for the years and not the numbers. And always draw a number line to help you. All right, moving on to number 6. All right, number 6 says Amy is planning a football party on Sunday. The table, below shows the amounts of each type of snack she bought. Which of the lists below show the snacks in order from largest to smallest? Okay, here we go. Again, remember when I told you had to mix the decimals and fractions? Always change them to a decimal. That way you can line up your decimals and you can see which ones are greater or less than the next one. So Takis, we're going to leave as 6.5. So I'm going to put T equals, so I know that's Takis. The queso was 15 divided by 4. So over here, I'm going to put 15 divided by 4. Change that to a decimal. Okay, so 4 goes into 15 3 times. It's me 12. Remainder of 30. 7 times 4 is 28. Again, I have a remainder of 2. I bring down my 0. That is 20. And that is 5. 5 times 4 is 20. Okay, so the queso decimal is 3 75/100. Okay, then I have 2 3/8. So remember we do 3 divided by 8. So that should give you 2.375, which we should have that memorized by now. So we have gummy bears, which is 2.375. And you can go divide that. I'm not going to divide that for you. Then we have Jell-O, 3.125. And then tortilla chips would be 19 divided by 5. So that would be 3, which would give me 15. So that would be 3.8. And I'm going to go ahead and add my 0 placeholders. Okay, so that's my tortilla chips. And now I'm ready to go list them the largest to the smallest. Well, Takis are going to come first. So that means C and D are out. So we have Takis. So I'm going to put that first. And then we are going to have tortilla chips. So the next would be tortilla chips. This would be the second. Okay. And then next comes queso. And then after queso would be the Jell-O. And then last but not least would be the gummy bears. So our answer would be C. All right, heading on to number 7. All right, number 7 says Blake's goal is to run 24 miles at the end of training. He recorded 5 of his runs while training. The fractions below represents the distances that Blake recorded. Which list shows the distances that Blake recorded in order from greatest to least? Okay, so we did discuss this last week, and remember I told you if you have a list of fractions only, make sure you find a common denominator, your least common denominator, or your least common multiple, which is what do they all have in common? What is their factor they have in common that is the lowest? Or you could change them to decimals, but if it's just fractions only, we just want the least common multiple. Okay, so 12, 4, 6, 24, and 12. So I'm going to have 7 twelfths, 3 fourths, 1 sixth, 11 24ths, and 5 twelfths. Well, our least common multiple, our least common denominator is going to be 24. All these are factors of 24. So how do I get from 12 to 24? I multiply by 2. What I do to the bottom, I do to the top. So that's going to be 14 24ths. This is times 6, so I get 18 24ths, times 4, times 4. So I get 4 24ths. Then I'm going to leave 11 24ths alone. And this is going to be times 2, times 2, 10 24s. Now I'm ready to list them greatest to least because I found my common denominator and changed them to the equivalent fractions. And now, I remember I have to list them in the original fraction that they were given to me. But I'm going to look at my numerators and see which one is my greatest numerator, which is 18 24ths. So 3/4 is going to go first. Okay, so I'm going to mark that out. And then next is going to be 14 24ths, which is 7/12. So I'm going to mark that out. Then I have 11 24ths. That one stayed the same, so I just copy that over. And then I'm going to have 10 24ths, which is 5/12. And then next, I'm going to have 1/6, which is 4 24ths. And then we are done, so I'm going to go look at the answer choice, which is going to be the answer B. All right, we have 3 more, and then we are done. I'm going to go down here. Okay, question 8. The Bachelor selected 30 of the 150 men that auditioned for the Bachelorette. What decimal is equivalent to the fraction of the men selected from the group that auditioned for the Bachelorette? Okay, so we've done these plenty of times before. Remember, I tell you, go pull out the fraction from the word problem and then turn it to a decimal. So remember, this is your part and this is your whole. So this would be your numerator and this is your denominator. So you have 30 over 150. And what we're going to do is we're just going to cancel out these zeros. So I have 3/15. I know that 3 is a factor of 15, so I'm just going to divide by 3. Divide by 3. I get 1/5. So now I have 1 divided by 5. Bring my decimal up to the top. That's a 0. Now I have, how many times does 5 go into 10? That's 2/10. And now I have my decimal. So the decimal that's equivalent to 30 of 150 is 2/10. Also, if you just wanted to leave it and not simplify it, you could do that too. So you have, how many times does 150 go into 300? 2 times. And so you also get 2/10. All right, number 9. A climber is 22 feet above the ground where he started. Which point on the number line best represents this location? So if he's above, it's going to be a positive 22. All right, so B would be your answer because there's 21 and there's 22. So B is your correct answer. Make sure everybody got that. Remember, you can always pause this video if you think I'm going too fast and rewind it. At Red Oak Middle School, 80 students walk to school, which represents 20% of the students. How many total students are at Red Oak Middle School? Okay, so here's your percent proportion question. Remember, 80 students walk to school. That's not all the students at Red Oak because we have some that walk, we have some that their parents pick them up, and we have some that ride the bus. So we want to find the total students. So we're looking for the whole student body at Red Oak Middle School. We have our part, which is the 80 students that walk to school. And then we have our percent, which I'm going to make with a percentage sign, sorry, like we do in class. We have our percent, which is 20. Now we want to find the total number of students that go to Red Oak. So I'm going to have 80 over X, because we don't know what our whole is, and 20 over 100. Now I'm just going to cancel these zeros out, which it wouldn't matter. So what do I multiply by 2 to get 80? Well, 40, because if I double 40, I get 80. So times 40. And then I'm going to have 10 times 40, because what I do the top, I do the bottom, times 40. And my answer is 400. So there are 400 total students at Red Oak Middle School. All right. So this is your review for your Unit 2. test, which is on Tuesday. It's going to cover things from Unit 1, and it's going to cover everything we have learned in Unit 2. So I hope this helps. Make sure you do study and you go back over your notes if you need to. Thank you and have a great day.